Right, is that working now? Hey, look at that.
Yeah, Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Fire this with a draft for the meeting on 28th. If there's any questions, I can take a. Second. Motion made second. All those in favor of approving those meetings? We have a review of project list. The project with a consultant. Evan?
So we, Jennifer, we were able to at the last meeting and then bring them forward to the select board. So they have approved that preliminary $3.3 million spend.
Great.
What is our next step with that?
So I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit in the beginning. So they approved your initial project list of the 3.3 million that of those projects, right? Is that what you're saying?
So what do we do? What do we do now? How do we proceed?
So
Spend.
how do you proceed with spending it? Oh, sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Oh, God, yeah. Yes. That's
Okay.
yeah.
I apologize. I'm just getting a little bits and pieces of you guys.
How's that? Is that better?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Turn the volume down a little bit, so maybe that will help. Go ahead, Evan, try again.
So,
Oh.
can you hear me now, Jennifer?
Yes, yep, perfect.
Good. So we've done the select board vote. So now what do we do?
So we should set them up, you know, I can work with whoever you're, you know, who's gonna set them up, your finance director or town accountant in your general ledger system. And then we should just look at which ones need to be procured. And if there's any special contract language, depending on the projects that have to be included. And then you can just start, you know, you can just go. We're ready to go.
So the 2.5 million for the HVAC at the school, we should full contract to make sure it has the language in it.
Yeah, so there's just a couple of things that you already bid, right? The HVAC contract
We're doing it as a 25A ESCO.
through the ESCO. So there's just a couple of things that you have to add as an addendum to the contract. You don't have to rebid it or anything like that. So that's not a big deal. It's just a few things that they'll have to sign off on that, you know, making sure they're in compliance with for the federal procurement, but it's very simple.
So do you have that documentation?
Yeah, I'll send that to you,
Okay.
no problem.
Then I can get it off to Jay so he can
Yep.
pull the trigger on that one.
You got it.
I think the rest are on our side of the house. As far as initial procurements, it's just the website and then the stormwater with Paul.
Great.
Do we bid Paul, did we already bid the stormwater?
No.
Okay. So we'll have to work with you, Jennifer. I can hook you up with Paul and we can start working on that procurement.
That, well, that part's gonna be the design, so that's just all through bid. Done through bid.
Okay, so that's, I guess, our design build that we still have to do, design side of it, so. Well, it doesn't matter, I'll hook us, the three of us up in an email chain. And we
Sounds
can
good.
start working on that.
Perfect.
Last meeting talked about 600,000, just to, in case we needed it on the nursing side. We did knock that down to 300.
So we left it where it was, we
Okay.
will have to, or did I?
No, we left it where.
We left it where it was,
Okay,
so we can revisit that either at this meeting or the next meeting, and
okay.
I didn't want to knock it down without the group getting back together and understanding it, and voting to change that number. But that's just an earmark on
Yeah,
our
I-
side,
I'm hoping it's a zero.
right? So I didn't,
zero.
want to go too much farther with that at the time, but that's a good point.
Okay.
Jay. And I think that's it. Now it's just a matter of, as far as those projects, well, I think that's it, as far as those projects. go.
There's one outstanding question. So the question I had, Jennifer, this is Peter Carlson. Question I had at the last meeting was talking about how our affordable housing trust is set up. So there was a question by some of the members to see whether or not can these existing ARPA funds today be utilized with the way that our affordable housing trust is set up today.
So Evan and Mary did send me the documents, and it does look like you could use ARPA funds. There's just one caveat. It's they'll be considered a sub-recipient, so there's just more paperwork that we have to do. Not any different than if you gave money to a nonprofit or small business in town. It's just an extra set of paperwork that we'll have to do, but I'll get, I already gave them some samples, and we'll have that all set up for you if you decide to go that route. But yeah, you can use ARPA.
And the same conditions apply to them as everyone else. The monies have to be encumbered by the end. Then they have to be fully expended by 2020.
That's absolutely correct.
Question, if I can go off just a little bit. So Jennifer, can we talk about I'd like to talk about premium pay for a minute, since I'm still in communication with the police. So I've heard conflicting, it seems like if you go to an accounting seminar on ARPA, you get one answer on premium pay, and if you go to a TA meeting like MMMA about ARPA, you get a different understanding of premium pay. And I know that that's a request that so far that the police have requested. Is that something, what do you, how do you understand, how should Grafton think about that if Grafton wants to pursue that at all?
So actually, there was an MMA meeting on Friday where they talked a little bit about premium pay, and you're right. I feel like I'm getting the same conflicting answers also, but do you mean in terms of bargaining, non-bargaining, that kind of a thing? Or are you talking about the actual pay itself?
Well, I heard two different things. So I've heard that premium pay has to be only for people that are 150% of the federal poverty level. But then I've also heard that if you go to JLMC in an arbitration, it's pretty much automatic that that's put on the table for discussion.
Right. So I think that 150, this came up Friday too. So I think the 150% thing is misleading folks a little bit, because the provision in the final rule says either below that threshold or be a non-exempt employee. So police and fire are going to automatically qualify for it. It's an or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of your, not just police and fire, I mean, obviously most of your governmental workers are going to qualify for it. If you choose to give it, that doesn't mean you have to give it, obviously.
Right. Now, have you heard anything JLMC related?
No, so that was asked Friday, and they said they're still waiting for JLMC's determination.
Joint labor. Joint labor municipal relations?
I think it's management committee. I think it's joint labor management committee. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's where you go if you don't finalize your contract. The state then arbitrates that for you. So it's at the Department of Labor Relations, but JLMC deals with police and fire.
They did say that if as soon as they get the ruling, they are going to send it out to all the TAs and then everybody that was there on Friday. I think Will was there on Friday as well.
That was the only other question I had, because Mary and I have been discussing it, but Mary goes to a thing and she comes back and tells me one thing, and then I go to a meeting and they tell you the total opposite thing. So
it's literally happening it reminds me of CARES and all over again, because today I just heard there was just a webinar like an hour ago, and this is unrelated, but just so you know, because it does make your life easier. For the reporting piece, now they're saying anybody that is under the 10 million and is using the $10 million threshold should just put everything under revenue replacement. When you do your reporting, it doesn't matter, which is exactly the opposite of what they told us a month ago. So it is what it is.
It's normal.
So, are you seeing, can I stay on premium pay for just a minute? So,
Yeah.
are you're doing how many,
We have 18 communities right now.
and how many of them are considering or discussing premium pay?
So no one has given it yet, and I have 2 or 3 that are discussing it. That's it.
It seems like the western part of the state is ahead on premium pay stuff, because I'm seeing it in the papers and in the western towns,
Yeah,
which I think might be because they have smaller departments. That can help drive it. I mean, if you're gonna give 6 police officers $7,500, that's obviously a different nut than
right.
20 or 30 or 50 or whatever you have. Which may be what's driving that conversation, but. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Project lists for Jennifer.
I'm consultant, like, so I have to pay the consultant, so I think we should approve.
With a set amount of hours.
Okay,
So I think you have that document. Presented that to the board, the board.
okay,
took
so
it
we don't
over.
have to vote here?
No,
And we reviewed this and like we say yes, and I mean,
I think,
With not voting,
Yeah.
then I'm okay.
I think Peter's right, so since the board already voted it, let's just go with that, because
Okay,
we did meet with the consultant, we selected the consultant, the board then voted it. And then we changed the way we're doing things and voting it here first, but I think that's chicken and egg, so let's just.
I just wanted to make sure I'm.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that what that bullet point means?
Yeah.
Oh,
Has the project list changed since that spreadsheet sheet you sent out in October?
no, and so since that's a Google sheet, any.
Yeah, would
changes
be updated,
Would
yeah.
update, but
I've been adding like columns to it, so
Nice.
I've reached out to Jennifer, and to get some like ideas. So one is like I added, is this part of our, CIPC plan, and so there's other things I added to it. Because I didn't know if we wanted to hone down this list before we sent it out in the survey setting.
Do I feel like we kind of got those bigger projects out of the way and that kind of dominated the early parts of these
Mhm,
meetings? So I would like to look at the rest of what we have now that we have the money and see what was kind of asked for, because I feel like we haven't really done that.
Okay.
Unless I missed it.
no, I think you're right.
but we haven't done that.
And I don't know if we're ready to do that yet, but
That's a good point, because we're gonna start talking about. Okay, are we gonna take that out and are we going to, ping the community about certain items that list is kind of looking at? I'll kind of drive this decision in here, but if there's something specific that anyone wants to talk about on the list. Do it. I mean, we can do that before we do the survey. That's not a problem. Right?
yeah, I mean, I would recommend that we look at this and we pick some of our top projects maybe in different areas and maybe send it out, or I guess we could do it the reverse way with the survey and see what people are coming back to.
Well, I think in looking, so I've looked around at a couple of the surveys, but it looks like some towns have specific things and some towns have like general catchments.
Yeah.
Like, would you like to see the money go for, parks and, and well, I'll call it recreation, but not the department, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or road infrastructure improvements, or, so they seem to have catchments that they then narrow down the projects that were identified and then move forward that way. Jennifer, are you seeing them doing it different ways than that, or?
No, you're absolutely right. So some, it's just really kind of open-ended. What would you like to spend it on? And some, like you said, already have projects in mind and they want people to weigh in on which ones they feel are the most important, or general categories, you know what I mean?
Would it maybe make sense for us to hone down the list into categories?
Yeah.
Like these are
Yeah,
general
you don't want
infrastructure.
broad, but you don't want, too specific.
Right.
Like that.
I have a couple of specifics, but not all of
Yeah, like
Or
examples.
Examples of like,
Examples of
you
what
know,
we're talking
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
about. I like what Pepperell did you?
yeah. Jennifer, you did the survey for Pepperell.
We did, yep,
You did it for them?
we did. Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just in SurveyMonkey. It won't, you know, if that's what you want and you want us to do it for you, it's not a ton of time. Or, you know, something similar. It was good. I mean, I don't know if you saw the results. I mean, I'm sure you've used SurveyMonkey before, but the results are good the way they, you know, they kind of break them out when you get them.
It was 8 questions, you know, and I like the way that you had the rankings in there, the way like, you know, what are priorities for people. I thought that was good. Yeah, I thought it was pretty straightforward. And what was like, just remind me, what was that you got back from residents that responded to the survey?
I'm so sorry if if you cut out.
Got back from the results from Pepperell's survey. What percentage of the people replied?
Oh, I don't know it off the top of my head. I can look it up though. Yeah. I mean, it's not as much as you would hope. I mean, you know, you try to capture as much as you can, but folks just don't respond as much as you can. I mean, we did our best to try to push it out. So some folks for some reason just don't like doing surveys.
Yeah.
They did the public info sessions there too, which were a little more popular than I thought they were going to be. Those were pretty good too.
So next step for the committee would be to break them into categories, or do we just use Pepperell's categories?
But I think I didn't see like Parks and Rec or anything. I'm not. Double check. Maybe I'm
No,
missing
I
it.
did not. So capital
Yeah,
investments.
just have to-
Yeah, so I'd like us to, we could use it as a guide, but I think we should Graftonize it
Okay.
a little bit.
Yes, thank you. for that.
Okay.
Okay, so that can be something for our group. Yep.
Yeah,
Put together. Okay.
So while we're on the topic, any other feedback on establishing, so we talked about categorizing our list. At the same time, do we want to do that first before we establish survey questions, or do we want to look at some of the just pre-approve those, but then maybe that you're talking about, like that's the final piece that we have to kind of vet on ourselves.
Yeah, I think we can,
I think you can do it all at once,
yeah,
Okay.
right? Looking, Bill, 8 questions, like, and some of them are. They only like 3 questions really that we have to.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
I just have a question, Evan. Sure, in terms of the premium pay. Yeah. Okay.
have been the most vocal
Sure.
at the fire level, and here we have no ambulance, so ambulance is MedStar, so it's not, we don't have.
Everybody goes to calls with them.
Right.
And so that's because of the, the communities.
Yeah, so what you start seeing is, where Warren gives 7,500,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
town gives 6,000, this town gives 12,000, it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I thought on that, and I think if we're thinking of that, I just want to think it through, because you can't just give police. I wouldn't recommend just giving police the extra money, I mean, then fire, then, I mean,
Right,
Yeah,
well,
we can't warrant in
That's-
one group.
different category than other jobs in the municipality. Right, I'm not a first responder, Mary's not a first responder, Paul's a first responder.
And a second and a third. That's what it seems.
Well, as you can see by the reflective vest, you really show up on the owl.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. So that's how some towns have been doing it. It's
yeah, for sure, yeah.
first responders is where, how you categorize that. So, officers generally have more hours in than when you have a call department. So I've seen other towns doing, stipend amount for call people that hit so many hours during the time frame that you specify. Whatever those hours are, whether it's 250 hours or that's an arbitrary number. I don't have any idea how many hours you. But JLMC comes back with, because if you go to arbitration and you automatically get that put on the table, I think you're gonna see more arbitration. Right? Jennifer, do you think the same?
Oh, I'm so sorry, you cut out a little bit there. Sorry.
No, that's probably, I'm quasi mumbling to myself. So one of the things I was thinking about with JLMC is that I think you'll see that if JLMC adopts look, if you go to arbitration, just assume premium pay is now on the table. Are we gonna see a spike in contracts not being resolved? Because why would you resolve it? Why wouldn't you just go to arbitration and put premium pay on the table if your municipality is not willing to have that conversation?
Yeah, that would be very unfortunate. Someone asked Friday too, what happens if by the time you get through arbitration, if you've already spent your ARPA funds, how are you supposed to pay it? How are you supposed to pay it?
Table, let's maybe add it into our discussion. We're obviously not gonna we need to know what the budget would be, who exactly it would be for, and,
Right.
I want feedback from you guys who actually deal with them. Is it a contract year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so-
But I'm thinking, look, it will have effects to us. Like, I know you're gonna say first responders, but it will definitely come to teachers. It's.
The only
ballooning.
caveat with that is though, that they had to have been working and that they couldn't work remotely.
Okay,
So that would take the teachers right off.
Some of them.
well, it would and it wouldn't. Depends on if you were just gonna say from March to June. They were back in the building in September, somewhere over the summer.
Right, I don't know the time.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm just saying, I just think we need to really think, because it will definitely have repercussions everywhere, regardless of the caveats.
Mhm.
So,
And it could be a lot of money.
and it could be a lot of money.
You're counting.
So on the municipal side, it's nobody but first responders that's on the table.
So would have found that people went to work every
Yeah.
day.
Right,
But you can't work.
right.
And, to be quite honest. Stopping people, there was no, be interested to see how many stops they made in those timeframes versus a normal time.
I'm sure there's probably an uptick of maybe.
But they didn't want to walk up to anybody's car and say,
Yeah.
you didn't want to have interaction, so you
Right.
didn't stop people. And they certainly didn't work any more hours. There were no drunk drivers on the street that said, getting the money, and it's like, we didn't do any more work. In their business, it's one thing. You know,
And then
the
we-
people, the responders to the town of Grafton had.
I mean, not harping, 'cause this, I don't want to do this, just to be clear, but, you know, we threw everyone back in those old buildings in September, and they had to work full time, I mean, there was, you know, so, I don't know. I just feel like I can hear,
Offer them $100. see what they
Everyone's
say.
being school, you mean, not, not.
I mean, I would love to be able to give everybody a bonus, but.
Well, I think it is a bad look. I mean, people lost their jobs. I mean, people, you know,
Yeah,
it's, we're gonna give you both. I just, you know, every town is not the same.
I mean, I went to work every day, like literally fed people, we didn't get a bonus, I mean, you did your job. So I think maybe we discuss it, so, because you're gonna have an answer, and we're gonna have to give you our reasons, and it shouldn't have to fall on you and the select board. But let's add it, but I think I still wanna look to see what the other priorities were, I still feel like we haven't done that.
I agree.
You know, just.
Set standard, is there like a minimum amount, or is it just a number you come up with?
There's a threshold cap.
At like 13 per hour,
It's like or 20 grand,
and
right?
25, I think.
Is it 20 or 25, Jennifer,
I think it's 25.
Or for the
Per
total?
per
person.
person?
I'll take it.
The town administrators that have done it, it's, seems to be anywhere from 3,500 to 7,500.
A person.
A person, that's the maximum that I've seen. And I've only seen responders unless you're in a city. So some city governments have done other things where they've done like every municipal employee, or they've done a whole bunch of weird things, which I'm not advocating for, because I think it was odd the way that rolled out. Because I think Springfield did pretty much every employee that works for the town got something, $1,000, $1,500, something like that. They also got a boatload of ARPA money. So, okay. So we can take our list and then start narrowing them, the catchments. And then get that off to you, Jennifer, so you can maybe, the other question I have, when you build the Survey Monkey, will you use our Survey Monkey account, or do you use yours, and how do we retain that data forever?
If you have an existing one, we'll just use yours. That way it's already on your server. Otherwise, we have to transfer it all over to you, so. Yeah.
No, I have it already, so I'll get
Perfect.
you the login and password information.
You want to add or take away,
Yep.
correct?
Yes.
3 or 4 on the pepperell.
If we have, do people have the pepperell?
Pull it up.
What up?
Is it just on their
Yeah.
site? It is. Okay, let me just grab it real quick. Yeah.
The pepperell one,
Yeah. Okay, I'm
I think-
on the website.
I don't know if theirs is still on there because it's closed. If it isn't, I sent you like a version of it.
'Cause I'm gonna have to do 100 Mary emails.
Yeah, sorry. I could probably find it.
And it pops right up. That's what I'm thinking.
I just. There it is. I got it.
Got it?
We should put you on the town seal.
Good.
Absolutely not.
Have to get a bigger town seal though. It is. Okay, let's, actually, let me, share this too, so Jennifer can see it.
Go to.
Yep. Yeah, they would just click a link. We'll have it on the website and the Facebook page and all that. So we'll push it out. I can actually push it out on Code Red too and just send out a text and email says, here's a survey if you're interested. And I'll get, 25 people complaining about that. Time I send one out.
You can scroll.
I didn't sign up for this.
You can keep scrolling. Scroll.
Yeah, I'm going.
So broadband improvements, we could probably drop that.
Yeah.
I'd say economic development would be local.
Well, no, because we have other projects that are just straight up economic development, like sidewalk improvement or benches or, all this LRRP stuff that Chris said.
I call that general government preventive expansion.
None of this would make any sense.
Well,
to
that's
me.
why you need like an IE, like, and kind of.
Like,
Cause I agree. Some people are-
Jennifer, did you hear Laura's comment on that?
I didn't, I'm sorry.
I just thought if I wasn't into government, and even though I am into government, some of this really means nothing to me. So everybody's thinking, yeah, we want economic development because we want to lower our taxes, but nobody really understands what that means. What's a one-time, like, so I think we need to be a little more descriptive. Not that this wasn't a great survey, but it just doesn't speak to me. I mean, if we put sidewalks, every person in Grafton wants sidewalks. They would put that, but they don't understand the cost. They don't understand what that.
Right.
That's why surveys, what are we really trying to get out of it besides it making it look like we care? We're trying to get feedback. So if we're really trying to get feedback, I want it to be good feedback. Not that we can say, oh, everybody wants economic development, and then we can say that means we should invest in giving all our local businesses extra money or whatever it is.
Right, so I mean, you could put things like, couldn't we put things like, where's the LRRP stuff that,
On the bottom.
yeah, I'm trying to get there. Oh, darn it, sorry. Should have brought my mouse. Bad when Kunwir is laughing at your technology.
Yeah.
Here it was. But like these planning ones, Mill Street Park and parking improvements, North Grafton parking study, placemaking. Like, placemaking is signage and stuff like that. Fancy your signage to get people to go to your key locations. So your parks, your trail systems, your all that stuff. Like Wi-Fi hotspot like that. I think you could put that into like, call that placemaking or something and then give it, but with a title that people understand what it is, or a descriptor underneath it, right? So placemaking and then say, public wayfinding and signage initiative, blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Right.
We can have more
Yeah.
generalized ones, like, just infrastructure, like, town facility improvements, healthcare, housing assistance, arts and culture. I mean, you don't have to have it like government level.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
yeah, I like
yeah.
that too.
That's what I was writing, seniors, like thinking.
Yeah.
Improving.
Yeah.
How is this going to help me?
Right,
Really, bottom line, how is my life going to be improved living in the town of Grafton
yep,
or my grandmother's life?
okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot here.
I think the city had, because I went on Google and I Googled like other towns, because there was a lot of towns that put out surveys in other bigger cities in other states. So I poked around.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I like Lynn's. Have that open too. And they said, like, please select at least 5. So you could get a good.
The surveys also went like into more detail, like they'll say, what's your connection to Grafton? Then it may ask the zip code. I don't know if we wanted to, drill down that a little more. I think like the bigger cities use that. Then they also asked, other information, their age.
I think it would be nice to know the general area of Grafton that somebody lives, because we do hear with some regularity how South Grafton is disproportionately invested in than North Grafton.
See where that is now, but, just saying, I don't know what the purpose is of that. That's just,
It's just data, right? So
Right,
if
yeah,
if you know that half your respondents live in South Grafton, that
Right.
might have a different impact on and all your infrastructure projects are in North Grafton,
Right.
that might have a different
I
driver
think
on it.
you may find some meaningful information.
yeah, but, if you do it based on hedonic value, then you're gonna find respond, but 1,000 people from North Grafton respond,
Also.
you get a disproportionate. In other words, you get a
But
disproportionate.
then we'll
response.
know though that it's disproportionate. If you don't send it out there, how are we gonna know?
So someone puts in there 3, 6, 1, 9, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Make that selection.
Right,
All right, so Lynn, I'm a resident, I'm a business owner. I'm a resident and business owner, and none of the above, the zip codes, the age demographics. And then you get into the 5 areas that Lynn should. I think this is much, I like this better.
Yes.
specifies like grants for small business
Mhm.
assistance.
Taking this as the outline and then taking our list and then making those categories as well.
Yeah.
Seniors,
Well, one thing I'm thinking about is we're looking at Lynn's and talking about our list. So our list was generated by department heads.
Right.
Where the thing I like about Lynn's list, even if, we make some minor revisions, I like that they're asking questions that we don't really have in our list,
right,
because we don't know what the public's level of interest is in those things. These are just what we think. Right, which, I think they're doing the best that they can, and what's happening in their sectors, but they might not necessarily know that people are interested in, stormwater enhancements.
I think people are, to be honest. I don't think anybody can. Unless you live on
I
George.
was gonna say, unless you live on George Hill Road.
That one spot that floods and nobody lives there, it's just a field that used to be sheep. So
Your highway guys kicked me out of the Follette well today.
they kick you out,
They tried to.
they think you were a creeper.
Yep. I drove down there because I was going by. Sure enough, a dump truck follows me in there and they're like, "You have business down here?" I said, "I have business everywhere. Maybe you should mind yours." No, I didn't. No, the guy in the passenger seat goes, "That's a town administrator." But they were very nice. Very, very nice.
Better.
Just think we make sure we put whatever we actually really can do,
Right.
because I'm sure Lynn had more money than we do, and so if we really
because we're
can't,
not-
if we're not gonna be able to make roadway inside, like.
So far as to say, asphalt is largely based on fuel prices, which,
Yeah.
as we know, would double. So, if we've been trying to do X miles of road a year, you're gonna get a third of that
Yeah,
over the next couple of years, because the asphalt prices are through the roof.
I mean, if we can
We open
help
those
with
bids on
that.
Friday, so it'll be interesting to see, but that's gonna be a thing.
So we have some direction to give to Jen so we can get this spooled up. So do we think we leave COVID public health measures?
Public health measures.
Just basic general, or do, I mean, I don't know what that looks like here currently.
Well, we kind of. It's just for schools only.
All right, so
If we want to do something community-wide, I guess is the bigger.
Difference, I guess, between public health and.
so their general catch-all is public health support, and then they broke it down to the smaller, right? So I mean, I think for Grafton, I think the things that would apply would be mental health or substance abuse.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to what you said, you know, how are we gonna support that? People say they want that. This, you know, we don't have the staff to do
Yeah,
it.
the city has.
Well, that's the thing. Aging, they recommend a licensed social worker or clinical social worker. So we could hire.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do that, because then we have to fund
Then we
it.
have to fund it.
It's Evan's problem 2 years from now.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
But it doesn't that kind of fall into what Jay is?
No, because that has a shelf life.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that does.
Only for.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. No, she's saying the catch-all, the category fits what we already did, right?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like what temporary measures can we do to make,
Does the Board of Health do anything related?
Whereas like, you know, some programming goes and outreach and things like that, but not. We'd have to be careful how we craft it, because I don't want people to think like we're gonna have, like, you're gonna come here for your substance abuse treatment, or we're gonna stand up a substance abuse treatment facility, because we don't have that kind of money.
No, and more just if you're, maybe gonna hire a consultant, for example, that could offer some suggestions of, resources that are out there for folks. I certainly know what the grants to small business assistance are.
For infrastructure improvement projects, small business assistance. Assume that it is like your mom and pop store has a sidewalk that's not ADA compliant, so you're putting money towards that, or I think even public parking or something along that line.
for the permitting fees,
Is that right? That's what it seems like to
but it
me.
has to be tied to some infrastructure.
Like,
Owners come back with, right?
I think that would be interesting to see,
What we talked
especially when we
about,
talk about
did that.
affordable housing,
mortgage and, what was it?
Rental?
Assistance. Yeah.
mortgage support, rental relief.
Do we not have?
We already had those programs last year and they ended.
Right, but this is the way that you can
Right.
continue, and they don't have to necessarily be. The CARES Act had a narrower window, where this, I think you can do this under the umbrella of affordable, creating affordable housing.
Was the money ever? Grafton account that was started?
Yeah, I think
Tim
so.
started? Yeah. It's all.
Grafton Strong account.
Yeah, yeah, because there's nothing left in it.
I think it was being spent.
We can look at the,
So people
It's a
were
little before
applying,
my time.
the application. It was slow.
it was, I did one too, and it was hard to get people in to do it, but then once they did, it rolled a little bit easier.
And then they set up an organization of development process to manage that. It would be interesting I would be curious just what balances are left in there for that program, if it's
I
still.
closed out the program last year because it had a sunset provision. I can get you those numbers, how
Yeah.
much they actually
It
utilize.
would be interesting to see. Call it individual assistance and then give that as the self, the descriptor, mortgage, rental relief, utilities assistance.
Yep, nice.
I think,
Personally, I would set it up for tomorrow because I think people, I don't think they can wait another couple of minutes.
Right. I think that, I'm seeing if there's any interest in public Wi-Fi. So a lot of places, they do it in their parks, they do it. As a way to get people to use that public space. more.
And we do have people in town who don't have.
I would be curious to see if that's a priority, but I'm thinking implementation is gonna be. That's all.
On housing, is there anything we could do for hunger relief? Something that we help partner with?
Well, one of the things, maybe we want to look at our grant program and instead of being small business assistance, it's small business and nonprofit assistance, because then now you capture, you get CHP, you got your Grafton Food Bank. So I think, you could give, if you gave Grafton Food Bank $50,000, that is like a game
That would be a
changing.
game changer for them.
Yep, and and carries on for.
They could
years.
maybe get some refrigeration.
Yep, the whole thing.
Like changing difference.
That's
Yeah.
one of the, like, same thing with community,
Sort of like,
CHP, right? $50,000 for those people.
Yeah.
With their whole model is volunteer based. That changes a lot of
Yeah.
things. That's a, half of a new tractor. or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So grants, small business, the nonprofit.
Yeah.
We'll add that.
Mhm.
That's good.
Wastewater upgrades,
No,
stormwater enhancements.
we're doing that. We did it the first.
Okay.
Checking things off, done.
Paul has a lot of other things that he's keeping his mouth.
that's right.
Oh, I see. Just coming at the end.
I don't think people, like you said, realize the cost of all the costs to do.
It might be good, but I also just don't want to put us in a position, or really you, position where people are like, well, 90% of us wanted something, and they spent the money on refrigeration for the food bank or whatever it is that,
Right.
or the schools got all the,
I mean, Paul, how much did the sidewalk cost?
$800,000.
Yeah, and that's not like a long.
That was, and I will say that was the easiest sidewalk this town will ever do. There was no takings, there was no easements, temporary or permanent. It was relatively flat.
Yeah.
The drainage was 50% already there. And it was almost a mile, but it was $800,000.
Right, so that's.
Want to know, so very similar. We got the grant for Safe Routes to School for Millbury Street. And now they want to do them on both sides of Millbury Street from Cortland to the school. We got the Safe Routes to School, which was almost $400,000. So the state's going to fund the balance to do the other side of the road. So that will be another like 5,000 feet, and it's about the same between 800 and $1 million for that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's expensive.
You're bumming me out.
Oh, so many things about it.
Like, we put an example of like, it costs so many thousands of dollars.
Well, I was gonna ask, when these towns have done, is the number up top, here's what we're getting. And then,
I haven't
then
seen
as
that.
I'm looking at it, and I see that anyway, and maybe I want everything else first.
Right.
So would everyone, Is
Has
that,
anyone
would
ever,
that be appropriate?
has anyone ever done?
Jennifer,
That makes sense.
one of
Would
the,
anyone has any play with somewhere on this survey, so that when folks are filling it out, they have an idea of what we have to play with?
I've seen that. I don't know if it's in the two, Lynn might have that in the beginning, but Lynn, their scope is so much bigger, but I have seen that in some. I think that's a good idea.
Did
Oh.
that, yes.
And then maybe on something, if we do decide we want to leave roadway and sidewalk, just to get feedback from our residents, maybe you do a little caveat, a little parenthesis PS. Or
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
just having used Survey Monkey is, under where it says roadway and sidewalk improvements, you can put a blurb that says that roadway improvements and sidewalk improvements are very expensive. So if this is where you'd like to see the money spent, it will likely not
the
go
entire thing?
as far as you might think it would.
Yeah, also, it's a good education process, even if,
I mean, we can put an to Jennifer
So we're gonna take roadway out though.
Yeah, we already have it.
public safety facilities and equipment.
Well, that should stay. Because
Have
that's
some requests.
$200,000 in portable radios.
Upgrades to existing parks.
We already do that.
Go into the parks, the existing parks recently.
Here,
Ferry Street.
yeah, they've made it.
they've made some improvements, but
Right, but I
Your,
can,
your equipment in Grafton is definitely lacking for kids, say 4 to 12. It's probably pretty rough. I've been to all of them now. Explain to you where the deficits are.
You don't have to explain it to me.
So we can, I'd like to see that stay.
I would too, yeah.
Pocket parks. Pocket park is a neighborhood park, so
Perry Hill.
like a Perry Hill would be, that would be like a pocket park, so it's small.
That was already,
again, it goes back to who's gonna maintain it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have the people to maintain what we have to the level we want it to be. So,
Yeah, I think we work on the parts we have. I mean,
That's a open space preservation,
Well, you see, because the city of Lynn is pretty much,
right?
so what they're trying to do there is basically any opportunity to grow their green space. I'm sure they're buying.
Yep. But for Grafton, wouldn't it be conserve open space? I mean, that's what you,
wouldn't that go towards maybe the grants towards like the land trust or something, or no?
I don't know. I think there's probably I think it's different. I wouldn't think when we got the grants that like we'd be looking at the Grafton Land Trust. I would think that your open space conservation would be an acquisition of some kind.
Oh, I see.
but in the land trust, you talk about parks and land is the same thing, enhance those, some signs that say where the trails are, and so make, improve the parking at each location.
But I think Evan's talking about buying up land so people don't build on it.
Well, that's what open space
Right.
generally is. That's,
Right.
I'm just saying there's
Yeah.
two different mindsets of what that means is, upgrading current parks, right? That's generally what we hold, not the land trust. You could do a grant for the land trust, I would assume as a nonprofit, or do we want to have, basically buying land for conservation?
No, just.
I'm just
didn't-
I'm just taking what Lynn did and fitting it to Grafton.
There was on Upton Road,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Construction improvements and updates to school buildings.
I was gonna say, that'll be a hard one to sell to
Yeah.
get more.
Really opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, because schools are, you have a lion's share of the municipal infrastructure.
Yeah.
So as far as what they need on their capital plan, you know, I'm thinking out year 2, year 3, we have.
We have to have something about the schools because unless we put a big, we could blur what we're spending it on.
Yeah, I think we do that in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then, but I
Yeah.
think we leave it on here to see,
Yeah.
you might get feedback from, things that we're not thinking
Yeah.
about.
Could you go to the very top of this, or see the blurb that shows what they put right here? So
Yeah.
the second paragraph there,
Oh, I like that.
they talk about what we were allocated and what was already spent. So they already dedicated 13.5 million. And they have 58 million left.
The blurb at the top is important,
Yeah.
right? Because we'll say in there
Yeah.
what we've allocated so far. I like the demographic information. I think that will be telling beyond just this study, right? I mean, yes, it's good for ARPA funds, but it's good to know that people 18 to 25 care about parks or open space or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, good to know anyways. Yep,
It says what has been the level, so, oh, there we go. So
this looks funky. I like this. I
Yeah, me
like their
too.
5 and 6. Again, for data collection, I think it's really good stuff. And then if they ask the same kind of questions of business owners. Home ownership status, employment status. No, and then it rolls back to one of their first questions, that I'm a resident, I'm a business owner, I'm a owner and business, resident and business owner. I don't know, I like this setup.
And the short answer there is good too, if there's something else that they wanted to be about.
Right.
Just. throw it
Yeah,
in.
just throwing them in, yeah. So I'm not- Does it say anything about, stuff, or anything? I didn't see it.
No,
No,
Should be in there.
I think so too. It would be good
Oh,
to know
yeah.
what the residents think. Well, I mean, we asked it, right?
I say you model, my opinion. Let the community figure out what it wants to do for itself, because I can tell you right now. I think I say leave it out. Set aside. If it's something significant.
Yeah.
And right then, we feel is good, then I say. Part of your first round of what we went through with those big items, we make a decision on that.
Personally, I think having the public tell us whether they would want us to consider that or not, I think also informs the employees of why we advocated or did not advocate on their behalf.
Off because we already put money into it, but it's the same idea. It's like, still should put it on. It's people's money and they have this,
In contract negotiations, you don't ask.
How do you take the job, you're working for the public, they have an opinion.
I just don't think. it's-
Listen, I work for the council, I'm, you know. I think it should be on there because it's a CY, it is a CY, it's gonna, all of a sudden, if we say we're gonna spend $50,000 on premium pay for people, they're gonna say, well, that wasn't on your list. Where did that come from?
Either with the other things. So you're not.
Yep.
Well, I
Yeah,
also
no.
feel like. No, I feel like this is a really weird thing that we're talking about here, like,
Guys can,
I mean, I think it's gonna come, because you're gonna think about it, it affects your contracts for the future and everything else. I mean, when we give, if we give any kind of bonuses, it comes out of our budget and we talk about it and I don't know, it seems strange that,
and I'm in favor of premium. I just don't think that's a question that you guys.
pay for first responders. For bonus for time served or something. If they don't like it, they're anti-police. If they do like it, they're anti-whatever. I mean, it's a lose-lose for everybody, but that's the climate we're in.
Hope you don't get into it.
Blowback's gonna come when you guys give bonuses to the police and I'm negotiating a teacher contract.
That's what I'm
Years.
talking about.
That's my blowback. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because other towns have given teachers, I mean, it's gonna happen.
Totally agree.
In my opinion, so who wants to keep it in that's that?
Right? You just said, I'm in favor of giving premium.
The
You
only
just
thing is,
don't
I
want the town
that-
to know about it?
No, I don't think it belongs.
It is.
That should not be the community.
But isn't this, it's this committee though, that is going to say yes or no to that, not to
So no, it's exactly,
per se.
exactly.
I mean, I feel like that's something you, but I don't know, it seems weird, like we discussed in school committee. And we made that recommendation for Jay and I to come and advocate here and then you guys to advocate up. Seems like it's kind of. just
This is
a
an
weird-
advisory board.
Right.
To the select board.
Right,
That's what this is. Or it's not telling me, I want you to go fight for.
because it's going to have trickling effects, so I guess I'm confused of why you don't want it on the list.
Should be something that it should be what we should see as a model from Evan and if we.
Bullet points are going to be a little more global than this. Makes sense that it's not there because we're talking more about preserving open space. First responders pay maybe versus. Sure, and
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
hopefully these are gonna be more global. Here, you know, maybe we can make ours more global, because there's. Less than, we also know there's these other things.
What the budget is, we can figure out if it's where it fits overall and make our.
Like I said, I look at a set of spreadsheets and I kind of see what costs are. So. This cost is, so right now at this point, I don't think it should go in there until. We at least see what it models out to.
But then when at the end of the day. decide to go give 1.5 million to that, then will the community say, what the heck?
You'd be talking like 200,000 max. That would be the
In first
number.
responder, oh,
It's like let's say you pick, and so part of the problem with
it's
the
actually small.
Evan developed the thing is that now I have to pick a number, right? So what's the number? So let's say you did $5,000 per officer, that's 100 grand, because you have 20 people. Right, and then you got dispatchers. Are they 5 grand or are they 2,500? They were working through the pandemic, but they weren't outside. So you got all these different layers, right? But I would think you would just set a number and then that's the parameter that we would have to work within to figure out how to divvy that up. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to, it's almost, it's very chicken or the egg, but it's easier to have the chicken in this case. The chicken being the budget and then work backwards. Because that's what we do pretty much all day is we have, this is the amount of money we have, how do we make it fit into it?
Well, do we want to give the charge to the consultants to come up with these categories? Nothing to have in there, this specific.
And I can, why don't I, maybe I could do this. Why don't I play with, we'll just pick 200,000 arbitrarily. And let me give you a spreadsheet that shows you what that looks like.
Yeah.
So that people know what we're talking about. And then, I mean, obviously, it's all arbitrary, so does that change to 150, does it change to 250? I don't know, we'll play around with some metrics and come up with what that looks like.
Well, I
And
mean,
then you-
technically, you have the money of. Okay,
Give it
5,
back.
and now he wants 3, so use your 2.
As far as the rest of the Lynn survey, do we want to copy this for the most part? Household impacts were on the business. I think that would be good to know.
So, again, the scheme, the services that the city of Lynn provides to its public. Okay, we need to make sure, like, are these things that we can actually provide as the town
Yep, yep.
services? But to our point, like, you sub them out to like the. I would like to know a little bit more about that before I say yes.
Do we change it to from what assistance do you need? If COVID-19 has negatively impacted your household, what were those impacts?
Yeah, or how?
Question-
How
right.
about how
Because I think
has,
we're looking for the how and not necessarily guaranteeing that we're gonna
Yeah,
be able to provide a service, because we don't know what that looks like.
because this says what assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly, so we'll change that to more of a, I don't know, I guess,
I would just say how has,
right,
you know, and then
How
you
have
can
you been
add not
impacted?
at all if you want, if somebody
Yep.
hasn't been, you can just add one more square. You have to change it,
yeah, right, like difficulty paying mortgage, or however you phrase
Right.
that, right, instead of mortgage assistance.
yeah.
It's in the same way. Mary, you took some of that down in your notes? Okay. So Jennifer, Mary and I can work on getting kind of those notes over to you, and then I'll give you our Survey Monkey login, and then we can start working in there.
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks, that'd be perfect, because I got some of them, but you were in and out on a few of the conversations, so we'll just cross-check our list to make sure we captured everything.
Okay,
Perfect.
establish some survey questions here. Do we have a timeline that we want to? Like, how much time are you gonna need to kind of take this back and provide a draft to us? I think that's.
I'm sorry, was that to me? How much time do we need to get it back to you?
It's an open question, Jennifer.
Oh,
So if you've got some input on that, let me know.
I didn't hear the whole thing. I'm so sorry. Were you asking us how long it would take to create it or no?
To establish the survey community outreach timeline. So we want to
Oh, okay.
know, like, when's the earliest we think we could release a survey? How long do we want to keep it up and running?
What's the next meeting area that you would be thinking?
Did we want to do the 11th or the 25th? Because the 18th is a holiday.
It's good.
Like the only.
5 o'clock, good with everyone?
Yeah.
Course, and then we'll review that, we'll approve it. And then we'll figure out a way to distribute it and how to get the word out, and then how.
That's funny, yeah.
What's the, when you're doing surveys, what are you normally leaving the collector open for? How long?
I would say 3 to 4 weeks. You know, if you could do a month, that's great, but if not, I'd go 3 weeks.
Due date on or about,
Our meeting's the 9th.
we can meet.
Says right in the charge,
That's it. Ugh.
one member at large, one chief canoyer.
Maybe I won't be chief by that, get rid of that job.
You say you don't like being on this committee? And
I've got 8,000 other things I need to do. I bet I will say what, let's see, that's my day yesterday. We had fire alarm at 118 Providence Road at 3 in the afternoon. We had Julie to Upton at 8 o'clock last night. We had a fatal assist the ambulance at midnight. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, went to work, and here I am still.
that's fair.
So,
Nothing personal.
It's 3 weeks, or then would that be?
Jennifer, do you think you do the, when do you do the outreach meetings? You do it after the survey? Do you do it during the survey collection period? When do you what do you think?
So we did one right before the survey went out, and then like Lynn, we're doing outreach right now and the survey is open. So I think some of those meetings will drive the survey, so it's good to have the survey still open while you're doing the outreach meetings. In Pepperell, they did too, because some of those categories they kind of got from the first meeting. But I think you kind of already know what you want to put in the survey, so you could have the survey open and do the outreach consecutively. But I wouldn't close the survey out until you've done the outreach meeting, like I said, because I think folks will hear about that meeting and it just kind of drives people to the survey a little bit more.
Then the question would be, how realistic is that? Is it that the outreach can be done before it's 5/11-ish?
I think it can be done.
Given
I'll take one of those.
15 minutes.
Oh, that'll be fun. Miss McGoldrick run it.
Where would you do it at the?
Probably the library.
At the library in the back, yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking.
Sorry, did we say after the survey results are due?
No, while it's open.
Wow.
So something maybe end of April be. A date on that.
That's the thing, it's kind of just like a 7-week window from right now. isn't it?
Yep.
So school vacation week is. So we could do the 4th. Fourth, is it still kind of before people are doing everything? I think the later in the
May
month you
4th.
go, the nicer the weather is.
So Jennifer, we're tentatively looking at May 4th for the outreach meeting.
Okay,
April 4th?
No.
Oh.
Do we want to do May 4th then?
We're
Is
not
it
gonna
that
have
way
to
you
serve.
Yeah, it would be May 4th would be.
Okay.
Still open.
Okay.
That would be the Wednesday. Yeah.
Right before the town meeting is not that far.
Either I have another meeting. No, I do, legit.
Yeah,
First
I don't
Wednesday
buy
of
it,
the
but
month.
fine,
That's-
it's fine, sure.
And maybe a town meeting.
Sorry,
Just to finish this
Jennifer,
up.
our meetings, our town meetings on May 9th. So we can also, because the survey will still be open, then we can
Yeah.
announce it there too.
We could put QR codes up on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
or in
yeah, you
town
could do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's a great idea. We do the QR codes a lot in Lynn, just because they're like literally passing out like hard copies of surveys too for folks that, they have the folks there that don't have the ability to go online. So, some of the folks at the senior center are more comfortable doing a paper survey too, if you want to think about that, some of the seniors. Just give that a little bit of thought.
yeah, we can give the senior, because you can print out the survey, monkey survey. You
Yep.
can give paper copies to the senior center and then just have, somebody key them in before we,
Yep.
Have our data.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do
do we
that.
have to translate it? Is there any, what's our? Which second, do you know what our biggest language is?
Spanish.
Translate it?
Also on that particular thing, sorry.
Sure.
So
Second.
All those in favor?
Thanks, Jennifer. We'll be in contact.
Okay, thank you so much.